Hi, you hear me?
¿Cómo estás?
How you doing, terrorito?
Bien, bien. So,
Shalom.
shalom, shalom, yes. So, I already forgot everything you taught me. So,
Yeah, I can tell by your games.
oh my God, man. I really
Okay.
forgot everything. Should have watched the recording of the previous session.
Uh-huh.
But,
Well,
but,
I will remind you the most important things
yes,
because
yes, let's do that.
okay, so I will invite you. Remember, you can always take a look at the study. I mean, you don't have to check the stream and spend 2 hours watching the same.
Yeah,
It would help, of course, but maybe if you don't want to, you can take a look at the study and just check quickly. Um, okay, are you online? Sean Slow. Okay, I send you a link on Discord. I think you are not only just.
no, I'm not. Okay, vamos.
Okay, so I downloaded your last 10 days games more or less to see
Yeah,
what was happening,
I got a
and
13 plus, I must say. I'm a sick player, but now I lost
yeah,
again.
yeah, you lost it again. But I guess you can go for more. You just need to improve a few things that you keep doing wrong. So first of all, in the Italian, this is something you play every game with both colors, so it's really important that you see the word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I don't know if you remember, but we saw last week, or actually the other week, that you can play with d3, c3, and the knight usually will do this.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that,
Yeah, I remember,
but
but I didn't do it.
I okay, I saw your last 15 games with white, and your knight goes to c3 every game. Like
Yes.
every game, they play bishop c5, you play knight here, they play here, you play here. They play, I don't know, queen h4, instead of taking, you go here. It's like you're premoving knight c3, and the idea of playing this Italian is that you play d3, c3, right?
Okay.
So they go bishop here, you go, doesn't matter the order. Actually, c3 is a bit more tricky because you might play d4 in some case, right? If he plays some bad move like a6 or d6, maybe you go d4. But if he plays knight f6, you will go d3 anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the setup I want you to play. And then how you will continue. Castle, and this knight, I mean this b1 knight, always will go to g3.
But what if he
So,
goes? What if he goes knight to a5? Doesn't it wreck me now? Like, don't I lose a bishop?
well, there's many things you can do here. First, you can move it like this, right? You don't lose it.
Ah.
Second, you can take this pawn, and well, you lose the bishop, but you win a pawn, so it's more or less okay. And the third one, and the most advanced line, I think bishop takes f7 might be good here because you have b4 in the end, right? You can recover the piece, and you take this pawn with check, then you take this pawn with check, he moves the
Mm.
king, and then you play b4. Maybe you wrecked him.
No. Okay.
uh,
Actually, that's good. Yes.
so probably he would go d6, and then you have to be careful with this move. But again, it's not a big problem because you have bishop b5 check, right? And bishop
Yes.
here and bishop here. And also, if he blocks like this, he loses a piece with b4 after you trade on d7, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So this is really important that you stop playing knight c3 here. It's not bad. I mean, it's, of course, this is developing. It's good, but it will make black game easy. Like when knight c3 happens, um, this is also something you play as black sometimes, right? You go knight here,
Mm-hmm.
castle, castle. That's completely normal. The moment white goes d3,
Mm-hmm.
it's not very good for black, especially after castle, castle, because there is a detail. When they go d3 and you're black here, you have been playing d6 usually, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a problem. This pin becomes really annoying when two things happen. One, you can't go back to e7 with the bishop,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the second one, you castle, because you would like to play a6 g5 sometimes, but with the king on g8, it's asking for trouble, right? Like many times, white can just sacrifice on g5, and this pin is killing you. Queen f3 is coming, knight d5, right? So if you are black in this position, after d3, you always need to play a6. This one is really important to avoid bishop g5, not to avoid knight g5. Remember we talked about this
Yes, yes.
the first time. Knight
Still,
g5 in this, when black can castle, is completely useless because you never
yeah.
want to take on. Actually, I saw a game, your opponent went knight g5, he took here, you were doing completely fine. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you remember what happened, but in the end, you play queen takes f2 and he takes with a rook, and you resign. I don't know if you remember that game, but you were doing completely fine and you will just blunder one move and lost it.
Mm.
But it's never gonna be a good trade, the two pieces for the rook in this situation. So this is for the Italian. I will make the most important thing. I will repeat it: is not playing knight c3, right? You want to
Yes.
play d3, c3, and this knight. I mean, we'll do something like this, right? You have this position, you play h3 to avoid things like that. He do the same. You go rook e1, and then this knight go here, right? You
Mm.
have to be careful with this bishop. So, for example, when your opponent go a6, and you see that, okay, I don't have bishop b5, he might be playing knight a5, what do you have to do?
This.
A3, well, that's a good move actually. You want to keep the bishop. Nowadays, there's two moves that are considered to be better than a3, but a3 is probably the third best move here. Is bishop b3,
No,
just
or that,
going to
yes.
c2, right? Very small moves, very coward, but you keep the bishop, and that's what's matter here. And the second move is a4, with the same idea than a3, but also stopping b5. So these two moves are are good. And also with this pawn, you're controlling so many squares, right? It's good that you do this.
See?
Okay, this is the first important thing I wanted to tell you because this is like the first thing I was taking a look if you were doing this, and well, every game you went 93, so try to go for this plan. It's gonna be better when, like, people should know what to do after 93. If they only play a6 before you play bishop g5, it's gonna be really hard for you to create a real problem, right? I saw you play knight here, you trade d6, but nothing very tricky happens for black,
Yeah.
right? So okay, second important thing is the Sicilian. Let me create a new chapter. Um, so this is the Sicilian, right? I saw in your last more or less 50 something games, after e5, you saw e5 30 times and c5 like 10 times. So, I mean, you're facing much more e5.
Mm-hmm.
So the Italian right now is the first thing you should improve, right? The Sicilian is the second most popular move you're facing. And
Mm-hmm.
well, it's normal. I mean, these two moves should be the two best for black. And uh, well, you keep playing knight here, bishop here, d3, castle, bishop g5. You keep doing this, and it's not the most annoying thing for them, especially when they play with d6, for example. You don't want to play like an Italian. It's completely different, right?
Yeah.
Because the pawns are here, so putting the bishop on c4 makes no sense. And you are usually doing this, knight here, d3, bishop g5. I don't know. It's like you play the same setup against e5 than c5, and that's not the right way to do it.
So what do I do?
The right move. Well, there's a few alternatives. Here we talked the other day. You can play open Sicilians with d4. This is what I would recommend you to play d4. Doesn't matter which move black plays, knight c6, d6, or e6. These are all very popular. Also g6. You want to play d4 and take with the knight.
Okay.
In this situation, well, you lose uh, a bit of the center, right? Because you are trading a central pawn for a flank pawn. That's
Mm-hmm.
positionally risky in a way, but in return you get a space, right? Imagine in a position like this. It's like black will play more or less in this part of the board, and you will play in this part. It's like the way you are putting the pieces. You have more space. You have a bit more aggressive development, right? You will defend the pawn like this, and black will usually play this. Doesn't really matter, but this is the position I want you to start playing. Like, then how to continue? Like, there's many ways, many different Sicilians. So my advice would be try to learn one setup and try to do it against most of the Sicilians. For example, this is the Sicilian I play as black. It's called the Najdorf Sicilian. It's one of the best Sicilians in my opinion. And with the other one that is very good is knight here. This one, for example, Carlson sometimes plays this one. I will write here the names. It's Najdorf and Sveshnikov. Doesn't matter you remember this. Just to know these two Sicilians should be the two best you can face. But what I want you to know is, okay, when you are in this position, how you continue developing. Do you want to play solid, like bishop e2 castle is usually good, right? This
Mhm.
can't be bad, and it's quiet, safe. You don't have to remember too much. And then the other setup you can play against most of the Sicilians is the English attack. English attack means you put the bishop on e3, you will go f3, queen d2, and you will castle queenside. It's like you will do this against everything. And many times, black will castle kingside, you will castle queenside, right? You will
Mhm.
push pawns here, they will push pawn here. It's gonna be like a race who's mating your opponent first, right? But this is about your style. I mean, you have to know if you like to play this type of position or you prefer, I don't know, doing something like this, right? That it's gonna be okay as well, right? Putting the pieces in this way, it's very typical. Uh, but well, the point is try to play knight f3 and d4 against this move, right?
Okay.
Uh,
Always I
not
need to practice all this shit. I'll forget everything again by
yeah, yeah,
one
yeah. The
hour
idea
after
is that,
this.
I mean, when we finish, you can take a look just as this study, not the stream
Yeah,
or
yeah,
anything.
yeah.
So you see more or less how the pieces are, and then I I don't know if I share screen with you, you can also show it in the stream or not to show you two websites or two tools you should use to like to study a bit yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know. We can probably take a look at that, or maybe I could just send you a link and you enter and I guide you a bit. But well, one is only chess. Is
Mm-hmm.
called well. You go to tools and analysis board. It's that link basically. Uh, I will open your stream. I think it has delay, but try to open that link a bit. Okay,
Yeah,
you did it.
opened.
So at the right, you have like a little book.
Mm-hmm.
At you see the H1 rook.
Yeah.
If you go a little,
Yeah, I found it.
uh, okay, yes, there's delay. So
Yes.
there you can see the opening tree, right? What's the most popular move?
Yeah.
E4, D4, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can move E4, E5, I don't know, knight F3, knight C6, bishop C4, like an Italian. And then you will always see the most popular move, which is usually gonna be the best way to play, right? And also in the right part at the top, there's Stockfish 13. You see, there's like something to
Yeah.
activate. Well, that is the engine, and you can take a look at. You can activate it and see what the. I think there's some options you can put more than one move there to see. Uh, there's like a setting thing, but I usually put three. I guess it's a good number to see three moves. But basically, in every position, you can study or you can see what's the best move and what's the most popular move and what's the engine move, right? You have everything uh, very easy to access, right? Like everyone can study the openings like a professional, more or less. This is
So,
what everyone do at different level. Like you take a look at what's the most popular opening. You see what the computer says, and you mix a bit these things.
so that's what the AirTags of chess do. Like they use it while they play online.
That's basically cheating, but yeah, that
Exactly.
happens.
That's
I mean,
the AirTags of chess, man.
that the Ertug. I
AirTag,
didn't
yes.
understand. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's a problem of online chess. Of course,
Yes.
the website has different tools to see if you play every best computer move.
Ah.
Well, they will see if you are a grandmaster. They will suspect. If you are you will be banned the next day, right? Because if a 1300 is playing all the computer moves, he's cheating. Problem is when a good player start doing it, because I mean you can like play a lot of good moves without cheating. So what's the and for serious tournament you have to share screen, you have to put the
Mm,
webcam, the microphone, everything, right? To But it's a problem, yeah. You see that in I don't know if you follow top players
no,
like
not
Carlsen
really.
when he plays, or some of these tournaments. They always have one camera in front, one camera behind them.
Mm,
The arbiter can ask them to even put the camera in the ear, right, to see, or right or show the full place if there's someone helping or whatever. So
mm.
that's something you can take a look. The analysis thing. I think chess.com has also something like that.
Yeah, it has
I
analysis, but after the game, no.
uh, Yeah, yeah, of course. If it's during, it's gonna be
Yeah.
so easy. But well, that's something to study. And what I always say is that the opening is like the only part you can play perfect because you remember. I mean, you played a
Yes.
thousand games the same way. You played Italian, and many positions you already see. Okay, I analyze this. I know if with your memory from 2 weeks ago, I don't know if it's gonna happen. But uh, if you saw like 15 times the same position, you will know what
Hmm.
you should do there, right? Of course,
Yes.
there's so many openings and you won't remember everything, but at least the first 10 moves in your okay, someone is saying in chess.com you have some limit for the analysis. Lichess is completely free, so in that sense, uh, I think for people starting to play, if they don't want to pay a subscription on chess.com, Lichess is very good.
Yeah, I
Um,
already paid, so I lost my
yeah, okay.
shekels.
Shekels. Yeah, no
Yes.
problem. You are a famous arena streamer. It will come back.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Okay, so that's about openings. And there was something else I wanted to tell with black uh, against d4. Because against e4 you are playing more or less typical thing. The only detail I want to tell you again is
Mm,
when you get this position, h6 is really important to stop this pin.
yes.
Uh, because there is some game you did that. And with black, there is something you are usually playing wrong against d4. Black against d4. Oh, okay. Black against d4. You're playing d5 in general, and after
Mm.
c4 or after random moves, you are putting the knight on c6 many times,
Yeah, I
right?
just random. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, okay. And it's this is also for white, right? There are some openings that go knight c3. There's a very famous player called Jobava that he plays knight c3 every game here, and well, he beats me, so I can't say anything. But this is not a move I would recommend to someone starting or learning, because you want to. I mean, in the Queen's Gambit, the key move is playing c4, right? This is what you will see a lot as black. And as black, you have two alternatives. I mean, not three actually. You can go e6, you can take, or you can go c6,
Hmm.
right? Uh, but you will probably never want to put the knight on c6 in this type of position. You always want to have the pawn supporting the center, right? What would be a good development? You go knight f6, then you go bishop f5, then e6, and then knight b7, right? Something like this. Imagine you have this position. If they go bishop d3, you can take, and your knight will go to d7, not to c6, right?
Hmm.
Because there's not only to keep the center, right? This pawn has to defend d5, but also when you do this, when you develop the bishop, queen b3 might be an annoying move, and usually there is a pattern here that if you go c6 and imagine you get this position and you develop the bishop, when white goes queen b3, how can you defend b7? What moves would you think here?
Like I guess B3, B6, no?
Well, b6 is the most popular move at the lowest level, and it's kind of weakening. It's not a good idea because the square c6 becomes really weak now,
Mm-hmm.
and especially this diagonal, right? So if they taking with this pawn, it's already not a very good idea, right? Because everything will come here, and if you take like this pawn becomes a weakness, right?
Mm-hmm.
They will go rook c1, knight e5, queen a4. I mean, and you have problems with this pawn. So you probably want to keep the structure as solid as possible, and this is probably the most solid thing you can do.
So it has to be the queens and right? Actually, yeah, that's a good move here, no?
Queen b6. Queen b6 is the move here, right? This is what you have to do,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the situation. I think we talked uh, about this when actually white doesn't want to take, and you shouldn't take on b3. It's like a waiting game here, because if you take now, this is very solid, and the rook starts putting pressure.
Mm-hmm.
For example, imagine this position: I play c takes d5. How do you think you should retake? You have three options.
Like this.
Like this, perfect. I mean, usually we learn at the beginning that we should always take to the center, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
this c takes d5 would be more natural in that sense because
But then you have those two
we,
assholes on the left.
yeah,
On
but
B.
then we have these two very weak, so
Yeah.
we have to adapt a bit this and very well playing e takes d5, right? This is an exception. I also saw, for example, in the Spanish, you had a game uh, that your opponent took on c6, you took with the d pawn. It's more or less for the same reason, right? This structure is much better than doing this,
Yeah.
and the pawns will be weak. And also there is a tactical thing that I guess you should know. What happens if your opponent takes the pawn right now?
I go to. Wait, if he takes, I go to here. No?
d4, perfect. Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. You attack these two, you recover the pawn because this will happen. Here you
No.
can trade, and this endgame is gonna be really good. I mean,
Yeah.
these pawns are much better than if this pawn is on d7
Yeah.
because then your bishop can move. This a6 pawn is weak. This is really solid. And well, in that game, just that I don't know if I can copy immediately. Yeah, I have it here. One sec.
A frat bro like you
Um,
really thinks you have a chance against me on
a6,
the chessboard?
bishop
In
takes.
your dreams, dude. While you were distracted with deadlifts and
You won
drinking
the game,
Dos Equis, I destroyed my
but
opponents with deep
you
pawn
make
openings.
a big
Oh,
mistake in the
you have
opening.
a full ride sports scholarship?
Okay,
We'll
this
see
is the
if you
game.
can.
Thank you so much,
So
Drainlord, for the VTs, man.
castle, he's attacking the pawn, so you defend it with bishop d6. I really like this move, but after d4 takes, queen takes, there is only one thing you can do here, not playing 97 because they just take your
Yeah.
pawn. So what do you have to do?
I guess queen. No. Yeah.
No, then e5 and you lose a piece. That would be even worse.
Yes, that's bad. Wait, so how do. Uh, I guess it has to be like this, then, no?
The pawn, yeah, the only move. There's nothing else you can do. I mean, playing king f8 is really well. Playing queen f6, lose a pawn.
Yeah.
Giving the pawn is just not good. Uh, so you go f6 in this position, and there is a. I would play this position as black exactly. I like this variation. There is a really nice tactic that, if you know, you will trick everyone playing this. Um, White should try to put the knight on c4, right? This knight attacking the bishop. That's very typical here. So every time they play knight e2, we can avoid this by playing bishop e6. And not the way you are thinking probably, because after knight c4 we don't want to take the knight. But here we have a really nice tactical motive. Can you see something else?
The like Ah, yes. No, actually. Ah, yes. It's good. Like Jack, no?
Perfect. Perfect. This tactic is not easy to see at the beginning. It's like 3 moves, right? You have
Yeah.
to give the bishop to take the queen, and then the knight will be
Yeah.
hanging, and in the end you win a pawn, right?
Yeah.
So this is surprising. I mean, because not here, but after bishop e3, I think 97, knight here, bishop e6. A lot of players did knight c4 in classical games. Classical games, I'm saying when you have 1 hour and a half, and
Mm-hmm.
good players like title players, FIDE master, international master, playing knight c4, which is clearly a move that positionally is very good because we want to take one of the bishops. But again, bishop takes h2, takes, and we lose a pawn. And
Mm-hmm.
well, only black can win after that if we play okay. So bishop d6 is very good, but here you have to defend this pawn and you have to remember
Mm-hmm.
f6, right?
Yes.
Then I want to copy some of the games I saw. Uh, I don't know if you remember the games, like or you just play and play and play and uh,
Depends.
these
You
games are all after 15 of March, so it's like 9 days. The older one.
in Age of Empires, I
Uh,
usually forget my games after 2 games. So
yeah, that's the problem when you play 10 arenas in a row,
yeah.
and all looks like the same. Like you doing monks, and
And you see, you didn't
uh,
play Age for too long when no one does monks anymore.
oh, okay. Why not? They are
Because
good.
they're all going light up those bastards. Because they
Oh,
ruined the
that's
arena.
boring. Yeah, that's boring. Okay, just before checking your games, there is something else. I wanna talk about Caro-Kann and French. That in this, you know what Caro-Kann and French is?
Nope.
Okay, E6 is
Mm.
called the French variation, and
Ah.
C6 is called the Caro-Kann variation. These two, as I put here Italian and Sicilian, this is after E5 and C5.
Mm.
When they play like this, I saw usually you're playing D4 and advancing the pawn.
Yeah, that's what
That's
I
right.
started doing after the previous lesson. Or did I understood everything incorrectly?
No, that's okay. That's okay. And that's what I wanted to see a bit because in this type of positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, this is good. I mean, and also it's gonna be easier for you if you play in a similar way against these two openings, right? I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you like to take, well, take against both. If you like to advance, advance against both, and if
Mm-hmm.
you like to defend the pawn, defend against both, right? You shouldn't mix too much because then it's gonna be too much information. So there is a game you play something like this. They
Mm-hmm.
go c5, c3, here, completely normal,
Mm-hmm.
and very quickly you lose this pawn. They go queen b6, you move the queen, and he plays c takes c4, knight takes, and he takes the pawn. So what's the right way to continue when you know your opponent will put the queen here and probably a knight on f5? How would you put the pieces in a way that you can support d4, right? Because you will have at least these 3 pieces attacking.
So either the bishop to e3.
Well, the problem, I mean, bishop b3 would be nice, but the problem is when queen b6 is coming, he's also attacking b2.
Ah, that's true.
So when
Uh,
we are, I don't know, bishop d7, here, queen b6, this move is never so easy to play because the queen attacks b2.
mm. So
And we need to find a way. What else can we do? It's very important if you play this line.
I guess knight maybe to start moving it here to later move.
Perfect,
Yes.
perfect. That is. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing. The knight always go to c2 when your opponent attacks with all the pieces. Otherwise, you just lose a pawn. And let me see if I find this game. That which one of these it is? Yeah, this one. I will just copy here. This was your game, right? Everything normal. Your opponent do this as usual, knight c6. This will happen almost every game you advance against the French, right? They will put the pieces in this way, and they will bring a knight to f5. But here, I mean, you went 92, which is already not defending because you lock the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And after knight c6, well, maybe you can still go knight b3, and it's not something I would like too much because black can start annoying you with the pawn as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like bishop e2 is fine, and when you see your opponent goes knight e7,
Mm-hmm.
you go knight a3. It should be like a standard reaction. And when you are in this position, everything is very solid for you, right? And many times you can even kick the knight with g4, right? You can also try to play a3 and b4, right? Trying to force black to stop annoying you on d4 because he will have to advance or take. But it's like there's less tension there. And also there is a last thing I wanted to show you here. Many times, imagine he goes, I don't know, bishop e7, right? Many times you can play bishop d3 here, trying to take this knight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take and then put a knight on d4. But there is a tactic in general when they try to take this pawn. Okay, besides here, we can also take the knight first. But this is not the point. I want to show you that many times, if they take this, we can use the queen and the pin in a way to win a piece. What do we need to play? Be careful because there is a trick.
I guess this.
If knight
No.
takes,
So we can do this now. Oh no, but
but
it
then I
gives.
can play knight takes.
Yeah,
It's
that's.
a check.
Yeah.
That is the point. I mean, with that in mind, the key to escape for black is gonna be knight takes f3 check. What do we need to do?
So I guess I need to do this.
Okay, nice. He takes with the knight.
And then we do this.
Then we pin, and after bishop c5 defending,
This.
b4. Excellent. This is the way you win the piece.
Sick.
So this pattern will happen a lot here. When your opponent becomes very greedy to take the pawn, well, think that many times you will have this. So this pawn, you will never lose it, even if you go bishop d3 after.
Mm-hmm.
And well, if you take this, I mean, he castle, for example, and you take and you take and you put a knight here, this is very, very good for you. Lorugo here. It's like he has bishop pair, but in a position that it doesn't matter too much. It's not too open. This d7 bishop is just blocked by his own pawns, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that will work a lot for the French. I saw you have like 4 or 5 games recently against the French,
Mm-hmm.
and you lost all of them. So and okay, you never did this. You usually put the bishop on e3, or yeah, I'm checking what you do. This is, I mean, for example, this is what happens if you do the wrong thing, right? You go bishop e3, and your opponent takes b2,
Yeah, I
and
missed it a
then
lot.
uh, so here you are, I mean, you have enough pieces defending, but you will need the knight on c2 when the knight arrives to f5.
Oh, always say.
So the thing is, if they go knight e7, you go knight a3, right? That's as simple as that. It's like a reaction. It's like your opponent do monks, you do light cap. It's more or less like that. You need to react like this. If he goes for knight a6, many times you can take it, right? I guess at your level, people won't go knight a6 too much, even if it's very interesting, because they just think bishop a6 is annoying, and actually it's probably annoying. But it's not so easy because you have to know something. If we take the knight,
Mm-hmm.
what happens is now they take on b2.
The disaster happens.
Looks bad,
Yes.
but actually it's not. It's a trap.
Wait, let's move. I take this, he takes that,
Yeah,
so
I
it will
take
be
d2.
more clear. And how is that a trap? I have to. What? How is it a trap? What am I trapping against, the queen?
We want to trap the queen when he takes a rook.
Ah, he needs to take the rook.
Yeah, so we go back with the bishop. It's important where we go back. It makes sense. I mean, we need to
Ah, we can do
support.
this, I guess.
Okay, this one is good. This one is good as well. After, but it's not the best because after takes, how are we trapping the queen?
Something like that. And then.
Maybe c4.
Ah,
Your opponent will also try to avoid it, right? If
Mm.
here rook b8. So
oh yeah.
probably this is not so good. We should go to e3, not to d2, because we want to support. I mean, what's the difference? Here they can take this pawn,
Mm-hmm.
and then knight takes, and then queen takes. So if we go back to e3, when
Mm-hmm.
they take now, we go queen c2, queen d2. Doesn't matter, but in this position, we can take with the knight and the bishop, and the queen is trapped after knight d2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
this is like everything you should know about the French. This is a lot of information. Take a look again after.
Mm-hmm.
But if they go for this, you just bring the knight to c2. If they go knight x6, you can always take. That would be the thing. And then against the Caravan, let me see. This one I didn't check too much. What you have been playing, I think you advance, but then you go bishop d3 too quickly. Okay, and you also lost the 2 games here. It seems like this opening is causing you more problems than e5, even if you don't face it too often. Let me copy these 2 games, this one and this one. So to see what you have been playing. Okay, bishop d3. It's not a bad move. It's also not my favorite because usually we want to play a bit against this bishop. And if you try it too often, then it's gonna be easy for black. He should just take and go e6, and well, it's a normal position. But I guess you can just play knight f3, bishop e2, castle in this one. This is what I play also, and I think it's better because many times if your opponent is not playing a6, we can just take the bishop but with the knight, and this
Mm-hmm.
is a bit better.
Yeah.
So when they play a6 here and they develop, I think we should try to open the position a bit. Many times we will go c4, try to take, go knight c3, and it's like, what's the problem for black? The development and the space. When you try to exploit your space advantage, the main thing is that if you are sure that your opponent will have all the minor pieces, like here, he will have problems to develop, right? Because especially these two, he can go to knight f6, usually knight x6, not because of the pawn, but we could just take it. And if he goes knight e7, he blocks the bishop, right? And if he
Mm-hmm.
goes bishop e7, he blocks the knight. So if what's the problem of going bishop d3 in a way? That you release a bit the space problem. Like now he can put a knight on f5 and then go bishop e7, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you just play like this is quite annoying for him because if he wants to develop the knight to f5, the bishop is annoying. If he goes to g6, well, maybe you trap the bishop. If he goes bishop g6, knight f5, probably that's playable, but at some point you can take the bishop, and you want to take it with the knight and not with the bishop,
Yeah.
right? So this is just developing normal and knowing that why we are doing this, right? We are doing this because we have more space and he has all the minor pieces. Think this is like a concept that you have to know. When you have no space, you should trade pieces. When you have a space advantage, you should keep all your pieces because it's more or less
Reasonable.
logical.
Yes.
It's logical in a sense that, well, you have all this space to maneuver with the pieces, so you can choose always where to go. But if you check black position, he's not choosing. I mean, he doesn't have 1,000 ways to go. This bishop can go here, here. Usually here you play c3. If he goes to e7, this knight is trapped. If he can develop these two, he can castle. So in the long term, you are just developing pieces, right? To normal squares that as you would do, and he is like maneuvering in two lines, right? So that's why bishop d3 is not ideal. We should try to make him suffer a bit here without space. Okay,
Makes sense.
I think that's enough for white openings. Let me see if there is something else I want to tell you for black. Yeah, so this is I was telling you, after the queen's gambit, you are also taking the pawn. Very greedy. And I guess I would recommend you to play c6 here. It's called the Slav. I know you like the Slavs because you beat me in a tournament, but
Did I?
c6,
What tournament?
yeah, the master of arena. You were Slavs and you hacked me. I don't remember what I was.
Right. I remember something like
I
that.
was Khmer, I think. Yeah, maybe. Okay, so you go c6, and every time they take, you take with the pawn. And you go knight here, bishop here, the knight here, e6, and the bishop here. Like you play this setup. I mean, again, I think I did this the other day, but you want to get this setup, right? Doesn't it's like you almost don't see what he's doing. If you put the pieces this way, it's always gonna be fine. If you play d takes c4, what's the problem? You will. I mean, there's so many lines here: e4, e3, knight f3, and well, if you put the knight on c6 in this position, you are always in trouble. It's like you should probably try to play with c5 attacking the center, right? That's playable. But I guess it's much more complicated to understand than just playing c6 and playing symmetric, right? I mean, that's I think when someone is starting to learn the basics, it's gonna be much easier if you just play symmetric. This means, well, d4, d5, c4, you do this because take you take, right? And if you do this, well, you are creating an imbalance here. He gets the center, right? He gets space. I don't think this is gonna be easy to play. It's completely playable, but it's probably not the most interesting thing right now to play. So my advice: go c6, knight f6, a6, bishop f5, e6, right? Just play like this, and then after e4, e5. Let me see if there is something else I want to say. Black against e4. Let's flip this. What do you face more? What do you think? The Italian or the Spanish or Rui Lopez? Bishop e5, I mean.
I think this maybe c4. I think
C4.
more.
Okay. Yeah. You have yeah, and also d4 you have some games. After d4, this is like the third alternative white has here. It's called the Scotch variation. And you have been playing wrong here because after d4 takes, what do you normally play here? You remember?
Take.
You take. Well, taking is a mistake.
¿Por
Because
qué?
¿Por qué? Why? Because now his queen is very strong in the center, and usually, I mean, developing the queen too early is not good, but it's not good when you can win tempo against the queen, right? Now you don't have knight c6, and if you want to play knight e7, knight c6, well, you are also moving the knight a lot of times, so it doesn't matter too much. Here, the move I recommend you is bishop c5. This is the easiest way to play. Also considering that.
But why?
After
Wait. Go back to that scenario.
Yeah.
If I go here, if he takes a knight, I have to take like this, no? And then I lose.
Well, this is okay. This is the nice part. This would be
fucked.
bad. You're right. You're right.
So
So we have a trick. That's why bishop c5 is very good, and this is
I
like,
ate like this.
well, you could take like this, but as you said, positionally speaking, we would like to take with the d pawn,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's the thing here? Do we have something? I mean, it's normal that you only consider these two moves,
Ah,
but
yes, yeah, I can go here and threaten.
exactly,
Okay,
we
yes,
have this move,
that's actually good. Okay,
and well, there's some chance someone will
yeah, some pleb.
allow the mate. He will do something, but well, normally they will defend it with the queen somewhere, and then you can take with the d pawn, right? So this is probably all you need to know right now. If he goes here, you take. I mean, you could even take the queen first if you want, but I guess this is okay. Queen d2 as well. Also here, you get the advantage that you develop the pieces very quickly, right? You go bishop e6, rook d8. You keep attacking the mate on f2. So the key move to know why bishop c5 is good is queen f6,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
They can also go bishop e3, and here we have to be careful because if you want to develop normal, knight c6 wins a piece, right? Because then he takes your bishop.
Mm-hmm.
He attacks the queen. We take on c6. He takes on c5. We lost.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we want to play queen f6. If you don't want to play queen f6, probably bishop b6 is good, just protecting the bishop, right? And then yes, you can develop more or less however you want. Uh, but queen f6 again is the right move, attacking this. If he takes on c6, we can take on e3 first. This would be terrible for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then d takes, always d takes. If you, the
Why
rule
not
is
with
in
the
this
queen?
structure.
Like why not
Ah,
take?
okay, with the queen could be, but I guess he goes queen d4, knight c3.
Mm.
I probably prefer taking with the pawn even here, like, because if he goes queen d4, the difference now, well, there's a few difference. First of all, I will be able to play rook d8 to kick your queen.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to take because that would fix his pawns, right?
Mm-hmm.
We clearly need to play against these two pawns, and with that in mind, taking it's just horrible.
Mm-hmm.
But we can develop the bishop to e6 or g4, I don't know, and then rook d8. If he takes, we takes, very happy,
Yeah.
right? Then we go for these pawns. We put a rook on e8, and we are better. So that's about the scotch that you took every time on d4, and this is just not right. And okay, against Italian we already talked. Against the Spanish, the exchange Spanish we talk. What do you? Oh, okay. Here you are doing something that it's not okay. Um, After knight c6, bishop e5, you're playing this and p5 immediately. I mean, you
Yes.
have only 5 games, but you did it in every game, so I suppose
Yeah.
this is what you would play. And knight a5. Here, if you like to play b5, the right, and also this is what I recommend to everyone I teach openings, because it's very similar to how you play against the Italian, against the Scotch. You always put a bishop on c5, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you do this, he goes back, you bring the knight, attacking the pawn,
Mm-hmm.
right? Every time he takes, you take with the d pawn, and you always recover this one. So that's never a problem. Every time they defend this pawn, we need to play b5, right? If he plays d3, he's threatening to take the knight and take the pawn, and now he defended the pawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we go b5 and then bishop c5. This looks very similar to the Italian, right? We have
Yes.
this, he has this, yes. But well, if the bishop is here and these two pawns are here, it's an Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I guess this is what I would recommend you. It's called, I don't know if it matters too much, but it's called this variation. If you, Arcangel, it's called. Um, this is played by a lot of good players. It's played on, I mean, even Carlsen usually plays like this. So it's a really, really good opening. And what's the main difference here compared to the Italian? What happens when they play c3 and d4? What do you think it should be our reaction? The same in the Italian, right? Imagine he plays the Italian. We do this. I don't know. They play d3, castle, c3, d6, and he plays d4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Positions where they play d4. What we should do?
I usually eat with e5. Mhm.
I like how you say it. Someone in the someone in the chat was saying that you don't take pieces, you eat them.
I'm hungry, man. I haven't had dinner yet, and I went to the gym.
Okay. Then let's take or let's eat the pawn. No, well, you shouldn't eat or take. Let's say take better. So we talk like professional chess players.
See.
Um, why? Because you are giving up the center, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like he take with the c pawn. Now he will have two central pawns, and you will have d6. Not only that you have less space, he can pin the knight. There's too many problems about this. So in general, you go d6, defending e5, so you can just go bishop b6. If he takes, you takes.
Mm-hmm.
This is like fighting for the center, right? It's like, okay, I want a pawn in the central squares. They take, you take, right? You can take with the knight as well and then take with the pawn. That's also probably good. But it's important to recognize this. We don't want to take. And there is as I say this, I'm thinking of a position we have to take that you will probably see very often and you will be thinking, oh, I don't have to take. What happens if you play Italian and your opponent goes c3, knight f6, and d4 immediately?
Mm-hmm.
Clearly here, if you go back, they will just take the pawn. And
Yeah.
this is an exception because the king is still on e1, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now you can take, and after pawn takes, you need to do something immediately to destroy the center, right? You can't allow him to just have the 2 pawns here like nothing. You need to do something. What can you do?
Mm. Like, well, that doesn't give me anything, right, to go here.
Check. Okay. I go bishop d2, for example.
And then this, maybe.
You can take the pawn. Uh, Here, I like this move actually, but you have to be very careful because there is a tactic here. They can take the bishop, you have to take, and now they can
Mm.
go bishop takes f7, and then
Mm-hmm.
queen b3, and then take your knight. This is actually very playable. Like, we can take, and
Mm-hmm.
after this, I think we should just go back, put the queen here, take, and it's more or less equal. If he
Mm-hmm.
goes back, we have a discovery check, and we take the rook. So he needs to take, and this is okay. I like this. But it's a bit complicated in a way because now I don't know, they will try to pin us. We need to play. And what I was thinking is that usually a bit, and also after 92, maybe this is not very good for a reason. Um, we could follow with d5, right? After bishop d2, we takes, he
Mm-hmm.
takes, and we go d5. This is what I was telling about breaking the center, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you take castle, and well, he will have one pawn, but it's gonna be quite weak.
But why wouldn't why would he take? Wait, why wouldn't he do something like that?
No, because then you take the
Ah,
bishop
oh,
and
the
you take
bishop.
this.
Yes, yes, yes.
You play d5 because of the bishop, exactly, right? If
Yeah,
the bishop is I don't know, imagine he plays like this and now you play d5. Yes, he plays d5 and this is horrible.
yeah.
But we are doing it in the moment where the bishop is
Mm-hmm.
on c4,
Okay,
right?
makes sense.
Have you heard about isolated pawn?
No, but
What isolated pawn means?
well,
Like, I mean, you probably
now
heard the
it's an island, one pawn island.
yeah, or no. I mean, sometimes two pawn double pawns would be the same, like
Mm,
the island concept, right? He doesn't have
mm,
a pawn defending in the two files
yeah.
next to the pawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is isolated d pawn.
Mm-hmm.
D pawn because it's very typical that happens. What do we need to do? Well, basically block it with the knight, try to trade pieces, and go for the endgame. That would be good because this pawn in an endgame is really weak, right? You put the rooks, the queen, the bishop, whatever. You block everything and you attack it, right? On the other hand, if white has the pawn, I mean, there's some positions like this, for example, where at some point they take and they go bishop d3. It's the same structure, right? There's isolated d pawn, but it is different, first of all, because there's an extra piece, right? Now we have the bishops, we didn't trade it on d2. When white has the isolated d pawn, I don't know if you can get it. I mean, considering the openings you play, I don't think it's very possible. Maybe as black you could get it. Well, when the isolated d pawn is with the 4 pieces, right? It's the best scenario, let's say. It's logical again because, as I told you, we want to trade pieces and go for the endgame. So when you start trading pieces, it's getting closer to the endgame, and if you have the 4 pieces, well, it's really far from the endgame. White needs to attack in this position. He will attack on the king side, of course, right? It's like all the pieces can go to the king. You will castle here anyway. The knight usually will go there to defend. But there is a trade. I mean, you have to trade pieces, yes. But there is a trade that is very complicated to understand. When do we take on c3? Because isolated pawn, this one, can turn into hanging pawns. Hanging pawns is similar to isolated pawn, but now you have two, right? And there's no pawns defending in the next files. And very important, these 2 pawns are on open files, right? So the hanging pawns sometimes are really bad, sometimes are really good. It more or less depends on how much pressure you can put on them. Like if you have the 2 rooks in this, the bishop, the knight, and the queen, and another bishop here, well, the pawns will never advance and are weak, right? On the other hand, if white has the, I don't know, the 2 bishops helping, the 2 rooks, and they just push, well, the pawns are really good. So it's usually a bad idea to take on c3. Sometimes you have a justification. I remember a game I had that I want to show you quickly.
Against Juan.
against Monos. Okay, this was a classical game against a 2200 player. I think he's FIDE master. He's good. And well, I got that position with the isolated d pawn. I want to get that one first. Okay, I have this position. I can take the pawn at the beginning, but this is where you have to not be greedy sometimes, right? Because I take the pawn, okay, but check development. I mean, my king is in the center. This check is really annoying. I need like 3 moves to castle, like 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, right? He's castling the next move. He's bringing all the pieces. So taking this pawn is clearly not a good idea. I just develop, right? And I play against this pawn later. I don't know if you heard this thing. I think Nimzovich, one of the world champions, was saying it's better to the threat than taking it. Like your opponent will have to worry all the time about defending. I don't know exactly how is the translation in English, but that's more or less the idea. We, instead of taking it, we attack it all the time, and he needs to. It's stronger the threat than the execution. The execution, I think, it's the translation. And here is the same. We just keep developing, and now I will take it, right? So he defended. I go back, and I go bishop e6, and I block the pawn, right? Very typical. Knight blocking the pawn. We already trade one knight, right? So that's helping me. And this position is good for me. And here, after knight c3, I decided to take, which is an example of when it's not good to take. Like this is a mistake I did. I should play, for example, rook c8, right? Forcing him to take. Actually, I might have be worried about this pawn, trying to justify why I took, right? This move is much better because if he takes, I take. If he takes my pawn, I go rook here, and then I take d4. And if you compare the development, actually, I might be taking a second pawn. But I have a better development here, right? My rooks are active, my queen is in the center, this bishop is quite bad. So I decided to take on c3 because I had in mind that these two pawns would be weak. Like I could put pressure on this pawn, I can block on c4, but this is not true. I mean, if he plays right, the good thing for me is that he played horrible the next 3 or 4 moves, and then I could get what I wanted. Here, what he needs to do, well, defend and support these two pawns. How? Bring in the rook and bring in the bishop and then playing c4. If you have a position like this, for example, where everything is defending these pawns are annoying for me because he will start advancing, right? If you see what happened, he just allowed me to block here, and now these pawns are really, really bad, right? Once I block here, this is a pattern that can make you decide between the isolated pawn or these two pawns, right? If he managed to advance and support, he's okay. But if I block it, well, this is very, very good for me. Then I won this. It doesn't matter too much the rest of the game, but this part is really important. Like when he needs to secure that I'm not blocking it, right? If I block, black is better. So he should bring the rook and push immediately. Then, well, the game is long, but it's like he's all the time worried about the pawns. So I can maneuver. It's not like it's gonna be an easy win, not even close. But he's always worried. If you compare the pawns, I mean, my two Iceland, as you said, right, the concept, are much more solid than this, and this, right? So I'm not winning material yet, but he has so many weaknesses to defend. So after some maneuvers, I end up opening the position. I think in the end there was some mate idea. It doesn't matter too much. He ended up losing because of a mate right here. But the important point is here. This structure. I think you shouldn't have as white any opening to get this, right? Because I'm thinking your openings. In the Italian, if you do this, and bring the knight, you should never get isolated the pawn. In the Sicilian, if you just play d4, also, it's never going to be isolated the pawn. And against the French, you advance, and the Caro-Kann you advance, you also shouldn't get the isolated d pawn. But as black, you could. For example, you had been playing d takes c4, right? So every time he plays e3 and you go c5 and c takes d4, like let's do it immediately, you can get a position like this with the isolated d pawn, where you should block with the knight more or less quickly, right? Like I don't know, you would play like this, but at some point you want to block here, like this or this or this, right? But you want to stop the boom d5. Okay, I think that was too much for
my weak brain.
for openings. What do you remember from last time about the end games?
Opposition.
Okay. If I
Something
put, I will put a position to test you. Like
easy. Easy.
you are in this position and you're white. There. Okay. Nice. Here you could go to d5 immediately, right, and keep advancing. But that's still winning, so I won't say anything
Okay. Yes.
because otherwise you won't make progress. Now I do this.
I already forgot. I fucked up. No, I fucked up.
Did you?
Did I? Yes, I fucked up.
How?
No, I'm fine.
It's
Oh,
fine. I mean, you did some inaccuracies. I mean, it's always winning. You never really win it, but
1 second.
what happened?
My girlfriend was complaining that I ate part of her bread, that I stole part of her bread when in the morning I took a bite out of it.
Come on, are you Monos?
I,
I remember
I
the
needed
same
to.
conversation with Monos. His mom telling you, Leandro, you eat your brother food, and he was denying it everything. But then, of course, he was guilty.
Never compare me with Monos, idiota.
Well, if you eat people food, then you are becoming Monos little by little.
Yeah.
Okay, no, so this endgame you did right in the sense that, well, you were always winning, so that's good. But let's see from the beginning. Here, you need to play king d5 immediately, right?
Yeah.
Then, like you did here, nice. Now you play this. You could play e4 as well.
Ah,
Doesn't
oh,
matter
yeah,
too
yeah.
much because here you just go king f6.
Yeah.
The thing is you shouldn't go e5 king e7 because then it's a draw
Yeah.
and would be really bad. Oh, so then you play king f6, king here, king d6 again. You should go king f7,
Yeah.
right, just to
Yeah.
push the
Yeah.
pawn.
Yeah.
And then you did it. You did it right because it's tricky, right? Because if you would be one file further, it would be a draw because I could get, like here, imagine I could play king d9, right? Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
have a space, but I need to go here. And then I can't go back, right? I need to leave and then you win me. If
Mm-hmm.
this was, if I have this position and would be this, it would be a draw,
Yeah.
right? Because I can play this move.
Mm-hmm.
You did right. I mean, a bit like it
Sloppy.
could have gone wrong,
Yeah.
like, but it's okay. And then, what do you remember about the two main rook endgames? Imagine
Oh, I
your
had one game like that. I had one game in the past few days where
oh,
I
nice.
think I won, but I'm not sure.
Okay, imagine you have this position and you are black.
I'm black. Oh, wow, that one I already forgot. Something like check. No, that's bad.
Ah, wait. Anyway, this is I put it wrong because it's on the should be the other side. Okay, imagine we have this position. It looks the same, but in the previous one, the pawn was advancing to the side I didn't want to.
Mm.
Okay, now it's fine. Where do you need to put the rook in this position?
Here, I think.
Yeah, perfect. The third rank defense, right?
Yeah.
This is something you have to know very, very well. What's the idea of this move?
That he will not get a position with the king,
Okay.
I think.
And if I advance the pawn,
If you advance upon, I keep checking you.
how? I do this,
And then I do this.
then I do this,
I do this.
this,
This.
and then you lost.
Yes.
That's okay. So the point of putting the rook here is not exactly that I don't get the opposition. It's to avoid the king hiding, right? Because imagine, I don't know, you do this, and at some point I put my king on c6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was mate in one. But now if you give check, I do this and you don't have check. If I
Yeah.
do this, I go d6 and you don't have check. So you want to prevent the king getting the sixth rank.
Mm-hmm.
Once you do this and I push the pawn,
Mm-hmm.
you're right, you have to give me checks. But it's really important from where you give the checks, and it has to be from here, right? So you need to go rook very far, The king is not getting these two squares never, because you check, 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 right? And it's a draw. So you were doing fine, actually. Rook h5 is a draw, rook check is a draw, and here you need to go back. If you go rook h5 is losing, because then you have no more checks.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
important to go back.
I remember now.
And then the Lucina thing. I want to see if you remember the key move. Then we can move to something else. Lucina is this one. Okay. You should see it now. When we are already in the 8th rank, and it's, of course, white to move. If it's black to move, what do you think is happening here? The pawn is almost promoting, but do you see a way to defend?
What happened?
Oh, yeah, my bad.
Maybe black to move?
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Well, this makes sense, and this is what most of players would do. But the problem is I can check you and I escape from the other side, right? Actually, do you remember how to win as white if it's white to move? We would give the check. I remember this check you did it the other time, and after king a7 we have to do something very specific.
Scheiße, I don't remember. Something like like this.
Then check.
Something like this.
Check again.
And then I don't remember already.
Yeah, that's the problem. You can't really leave immediately, because I will check, 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 and you will have to hide again on e8, right? So in order to, how to think this? Well, if you could block the checks at some point with the rook, you would be winning. And
that's true.
That is why you have to start with a move like, the best move is rook g4. Because rook g5, I think I told you, king a6 is kind of annoying.
Okay, now,
but you go
now
rook,
remember.
And then check, 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 check. What do you do with your king?
I advance towards rook. Right?
Yeah. So how? Let's move it.
Wait, whose turn is it now? Black.
Yeah, it's black. Imagine I just wait.
Okay, so I go here.
I go check.
I go here.
Check.
Go here.
I take your pawn
and
fuck,
you
no. Quit chess.
Wait. So I go. No, fuck.
Okay. Check. Check. And you won. Nice. If after king f6 I just wait here, how do you block me? Perfect. Rook g5 to play rook e5, and you won again. So this is how you win, right? So imagine that if it's black to move, playing rook d2 is not changing actually nothing, right? Because we go check and rook g4 again. So if it's black to move, we know rook d2 is the same. Check here, rook g4, game over, because we will bring the king and we will block. What's the move that can save black here?
Something like that. I don't even remember. I'm just improvising. No, that doesn't make sense. I guess it was to a7. No, also not. I don't remember.
Well, no, this one I think we didn't talk about. So the thing is, yes, if you go rook here, rook here, rook here, It's always the same. I will give check, I will move my king, and I will try to block the checks, and then that's over. But we can give this check.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is a very specific thing to know, that many times in these rook endgames, we will need 3 files between the rook and the pawn, right? Why is this? Because let's do this first. If this is happening, well, we
Mm-hmm.
bring the king, and then king b7 attacks the rook.
Mm-hmm.
You can keep checking, and after this, king c7, and you lost,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if you have 3, this check, and this check again, and you can't really get closer to the
Mm-hmm.
rook because you lose the
True.
pawn.
True.
So this is an important concept in many rook endgames, not only this one. If we have 3 files, you will be able to give checks, check, and it's gonna be a draw. Another important one. Imagine we have this endgame now. This pawn is about to promote.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening? Is it a draw? White wins.
I guess white can win
How?
by moving the king. Why can't I move it?
I put yeah, my bad. I put black to move. Yes, you bring the king. Okay, what's the plan? Where do you want to go with the king?
To b7?
Okay, and when you go to b7, what happens if I go rook b1 check?
I run away.
I give you check,
Yeah.
and at some point when you are far from the pawn, I go back to a1. Like
Mm.
imagine this, right? I wait. When you defend the pawn,
Mm-hmm.
you are actually threatening to move the rook and promote,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I check. Here check, here check, here check, here check. I mean, I give you checks till you bring the king to my rook, more or less, and then I go rook a1 again. And
Mm-hmm.
here I go rook a6, and here I go rook here, and here just wait. And when your king gets to b6, I check again.
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly a draw, right? You can't. Your rook is trapped. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is important, and there is an example, like the same example. If we add some pawn, like a pawn here, for example, it's the same. It doesn't matter anything because if you push the pawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think black should play?
Why not it?
Because rook h8 check and then queen.
Uh, that's true. Just go here.
So don't eat
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
the bread.
Yeah.
So if the h pawn goes to a6, doesn't matter. You go to a7. If
Yes.
there's a g pawn, it is the same, right? Because this is also
So
a
I
draw.
shouldn't
We
leave
just wait.
7 with the king.
You need to keep the king in this corner. We will see
Yes.
now why. There is a tactic that you have to know, or you will find it if you don't know it. Now we just wait, and when the king goes to b6, check. We go
Mm-hmm.
back to a1. Easy draw, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
you can't live with the rook.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happens if the pawn, instead of being h or g, is an f pawn? Let's put this position. What will happen when we push the pawn to f6?
The same, no? Like if you're asking, it's different, but I don't see how.
Yeah, your logic is working. It's different. So the point is, when we push the pawn, you will say, okay, I just put my king on f7,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Because if you go here, I promote. If you advance, I just give you check and promote. But king f7, what can I do?
You can go here.
Excellent. Perfect. That's the That's the trick,
Yes.
right? So what to this exact endgame won't happen too much, but what to remember from this? Well, pushing the pawn to a7, you have to be very, very sure that you will win, right? Otherwise, you would need to keep the pawn on a6, right? Imagine
Mm-hmm.
this position, for example, is winning for white because we can hide the king on a7,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we move the rook, then we maneuver, and then we promote.
Mm-hmm.
If we push a7, it's very, very tricky. I mean, many times we will be screwing the game completely unless we are sure that we're winning. Well, for example, because we have another pass pawn that will allow us to make this trick,
Yes.
right? And with this, was showing you this to show you the last theoretical endgame that is the most tricky one. It's called Vancouver. So let me just copy from a book. So I put exactly the same one. If you don't see this one first, it's hard to understand why it's gonna be working here. Like this is the game. Okay. So now the pawn is on a6,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what's the difference now? As I told you, the king will do this, and when you start giving checks, I just hide on a7,
Mm-hmm.
game over, right? So why you can't bring the king to help? Because would be nice, right? You just bring the king faster than this king, you take the pawn, it's a draw.
Mm-hmm.
What's the problem of leaving this corner? Like till what square you can leave? Try to think it that way. The key is the tactic we saw before, right? You will have a7, and if the king is around here, we can go rook h8,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you can't take the pawn because the rook will just take your rook.
Yes.
So
I
you go king
guess.
f7. Can you
Yeah.
play king f7 here?
Yes.
Because after a7, what do you play?
Okay. What again? I lost track.
Imagine you go king f7,
Mm-hmm.
and I go a7.
Mm-hmm.
What should you play as black?
Check, I guess.
Check. Now I do this, and I do this.
Ah, okay, that's not good.
So you have to prevent the trick you found before.
Mm-hmm.
So how? Perfect. You have to go back. So this is the same draw than before because you will wait till the king goes to b6 and you will give checks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, in this position, your king is trapped in this corner, right?
Yeah.
If you go to e7, after a7, you lost, right? In this position, I do this. King e7, here you lost
Mm-hmm.
because you are not in time to stop this trick. If you go these squares, I check you. And well, I'm promoting. You can give me some checks, but then I just bring the king. And when you run out of checks, you lose. So this one is very complicated. Um, like
I,
what you
I
have
need
to
one
think.
second, Felix. 1 minute. Be right back. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. Did you eat something else? Did
No,
you
no,
discover
no.
something more?
But I am
Okay.
already thinking about dinner.
Okay. Okay. We are about to finish. So this is the last thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's a bit tricky. I just show you this endgame with the pawn on a7 first. because it's very similar in a way, right? The pawn is here, so when you bring the king and you defend the pawn,
Mm-hmm.
we need to give checks. Why? Because we need the rook trapped on a8, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this endgame, oh, not this one, this one, here, we need to do something very similar, and this is the only way to make a draw. This is like the third theoretical endgame. We saw Philidor, Lucina. Philidor is the third rank defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lucina is when you need to put a rook to block the checks and make like a bridge. And this one is Vancouver. It works when the rook, it's a rook pawn. And we need to do the same. We give check and we put the rook attacking the pawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if a7, rook a6, we are just in the previous position, right? We
Yeah.
just wait till the king comes. But what happens if he keeps bringing the king? Good thing here is his rook is trapped, because if he moves the rook, I mean, to a7, we just move the king. To a8, we just move the king. And if he goes there, we take the pawn. So if he brings the king, we will need to do something very similar. And this one, for sure, you will forget, but you have to take a look again and try to understand it. You keep the rook attacking the pawn the same way we did here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when the king goes to b5, attacking the pawn, you need to give checks,
Mm-hmm.
right? Every time they go a7, we put the rook on a6 and we make a draw. But if he gets b5, we really, really need to give the checks. And where do we need the checks? Is it the same to give check here, 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 here? There is a very important detail.
You need to be far from him, no? To be far from the king.
Well, how far?
At
Because
least,
actually,
at least two times.
it makes
no?
sense. It makes sense what you are saying, but in this case, these two files are losing and these two files are making a draw.
Okay, so that's not what I thought.
No, it would make sense in a normal situation. This is
Yeah.
like an exception, because the king is annoying your rook. If you go too far, you won't have all the checks, right? Because the king will block the rook or the check.
Mm-hmm.
So when he gets king b5, you need to give checks, and the ideal file is the f file, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you will wait, like you can go rook b6 here, rook here, doesn't really matter. But when he's about to play king b5, you want the rook here, so you can give check, check, check. Well, check, you win, right?
Yeah.
Here you go check, and here you go back to attacking the pawn.
Yeah.
So this is like the method. When you are here, well, you can go king a7, right? Here, check, here, you just wait. When the king defends the pawn, you need to give checks. So here you can go rook g6, rook b6, doesn't really matter. But you only need to give checks when the king defends the pawn. Because we make a draw because the rook is trapped,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So well, this one is the less known, and it only happens with the rook pawn, right? Because imagine the same situation with any other pawn. I will just move here. This is completely winning always, because I mean the rook is never trapped, right? You can just bring the king this way,
Yeah.
and then you just move the rook and you promote.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, that's Vancouver. Here you probably have some text that you can read after. I just activated. This is the Vancouver position. Black follows the same blah blah blah. But the point is, you attack the pawn, and when the king defends it, you give the checks. The same that you were doing in this one, right? You attack the pawn. When the king goes to b6, you give the checks. So well, that was some endgames. Probably that's the opening thing is the one that will help you much more right now. Keep doing Puzzle Rush, Puzzle Storm, whatever you are doing for tactics. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
And take a look at this. Italian, well, don't put the knight on c3, right? Go d3, c3, bring the knight like this. In the Sicilian, play this move, right? And well, against you can take a look, right? After this, I recommend you to play chat c6, not taking it. And here, what I put, okay, you, for example, in this one, bishop c5, queen f6 is something really good to remember. So, and then in the French, we saw this knight idea. It's a lot of information. If you don't take a look again, I know it will be really hard to remember. So well, I will watch you sometimes to see if you keep playing your old things or you are doing your homework.
Yeah,
But
I'll have to reread this tomorrow
yeah,
because I'll
you
forget
you have
everything.
to take a look at this, and well, remember the lichess.org/analysis.
Mm-hmm.
There you can play around a lot with the opening tree and stockfish, and you can, I mean, it's better than anyone if you can use stockfish and know how to learn with that. You will have very good openings, and it's if your opening is good, then it's gonna be easy to play good games. If you know, okay, usually my knight is here because I defend my pawn, and then I have a tactic that, I mean, if they go for the pawn, we pin this and we win a piece, and well, maybe it's easy to play like that when you already know what can happen. Not like, okay, here I have no idea. I do this and queen b6. I don't know how to defend the pawns, and it's a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look, especially at e6 and c6, because your score against these two moves is really bad. You have like 10 games and you won one or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So these two moves were problematic. And then, well, in the Italian, don't go knight c3.
Yeah.
I will rename this a bit,
Mm-hmm.
so then you can take a look at and know what endgame is which one. But well, try to review not the stream. I don't think the stream. Well, it would be nice probably, but especially the study, and try to see why some more. Try to understand that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take a look tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay,
Perfect. I
thank
will send.
you, Federico, idiota.
Okay. See you.
We will.
I have a tournament in 25 minutes. I will be
Oh,
late because of you.
who are you playing
So
against? You have to go there or is it online?
no, I have to go. It's the first time after 1 year. It's gonna
Ah,
be over the war.
so
Maybe I
run, don't be
come back.
late.
Maybe I come back with coronavirus. But well, I miss playing with actual pieces.
Yeah,
So well,
good luck, man.
well,
Good luck. And
thank you, and
we will do this again next week then, on probably
yeah,
Wednesday.
yeah. Next week we do it, and do your homework. I will
Yes,
send you the
yes.
link tomorrow,
I will,
so you
Papa.
remember. Okay,
Thank you. Bye bye,
less
pleb.
arena and more Caro-Can and Sicilian.
We will see. We
Bye.
will see. Bye bye.
See you later. Bye.
Okay, hope you enjoy this, boys. We'll do it again next week. My low is around 12, 13 plus. I will do some like 3 chess games or so to see if I remember anything, and then we'll go with Age of Empires.